Assalamu alaikum to all the viewers who have joined us today. My name is Firdaus and welcome to our first virtual Al-Tazkiya 2020. I hope you all enjoyed your discussions and talks so far, and I pray everyone is keeping safe and you are in the best of health and iman, inshallah. I am your host for today, alongside Sister Hafsa. Sister Hafsa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're all well. I'd just like to give you all a warm welcome again.
And today we have our special guest, Dr. Sanam. Dr. Sanam Mustafa is an internationally trained molecular pharmacologist who currently holds a position as Senior Research Associate at the ARC Centre for Nanoscale Biophotonics and a Science Technology Australia's inaugural superstar of STEM. Dr. Sanam was recently awarded the University of Adelaide's Executive Dean's Medal for Engagement and Advancement. A passionate advocate for gender equality and inclusion, Dr. Sanam is on the board of Academic Life and a member of multiple committees. I would like to welcome Dr. Sanam.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to thank you for inviting me today, and I'm very honoured that I have the opportunity to share some of my lived experiences with you and your viewers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Sister Hafsa will begin with the first questions for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is, how have you balanced moving away from home with childcare and the other responsibilities?
Well, I actually moved to Perth, Western Australia back in 2009. At that point, I was single, so I didn't have to worry about all the responsibilities of having a young family. But this did give me an opportunity to live in a foreign country by myself and really kind of understand how Australia works. I got married in 2012 and I moved to Adelaide, South Australia then. And I had my eldest daughter in 2015. Her name is Zena. And this gave me the opportunity to really, first of all, establish myself in Adelaide in terms of my career, because I picked everything up and moved here. And I was very, very lucky that my mother, who lives in the UK, in Scotland, she came out to Australia 1 month before Zena was born to look after me. And then she stayed until Zena was 4 months old. So I was very, very fortunate that my mother was here to help me adjust to motherhood. And this was really priceless because my mother is one of my biggest inspirations. And to have her by my side when I was preparing to be a mother myself was just so special. And she looked after everything while I went through the recovery. And Zena was 4 months old when my mum left. And really at that point, that's when things got really tough for us as a family. Because the week after my mum left to go back to the UK, my daughter was hospitalised. So she had undiagnosed silent reflux, was losing a lot of weight in the first few months of her life. And they admitted her into hospital. And it was the same week then that my mother-in-law also was diagnosed with cancer. So all of a sudden my mum left and everything was up in the air. And we had to really work together as a family. It was a very stressful, very difficult situation, but we managed to get through, myself, my husband, and my father-in-law. And I think this really shows you that in life, when you're faced with a difficult or challenging situation, you have to find a way through because often there's no other alternative. So really, leaning on the support that you have, it might not be extended family, but leaning on that support is really important. And one other thing I've done to adjust to caring for two young children, so since then I've had another daughter who her name is Irina, she was born last year, is that I've returned back to work at reduced hours. So I'm only doing 0.5 position to allow me to have that transition back to work so I can balance all the care for my children, my elderly father-in-law, and run the house and balance work. So it's understanding that you shouldn't be, often you do, but try not to stretch yourself too much and know what your limitations are. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. So
Pleasure.
The next question is, what methods have worked for you to prioritize being a mother, a wife, and working?
Yeah, so for me, what I understand is that I think you really have to know what your priorities are in life. And for me, my priority is always my family. And within my family is my young children. They depend on me. So they are always my priority. And so that's why I took quite a considerable amount of time off for maternity leave. For my first daughter, I took 10 months off, and I returned back very, very slowly to work. And this time around, I actually took a whole year off, because now I had to juggle 2 children, and I've only returned back at 0.5. So I think once you know your priorities are, then you can work everything else around it. Now, yes, my family is my priority, but I also love what I do. I love being a scientist. I love doing research. I love going to work. And so that was also very important. So you have to find a way to balance it. And I'm very lucky that I have a very, very supportive husband. I couldn't have asked for a more supportive husband, actually. He has supported me through so much. He's very hands-on dad. He loves to, he'll care for the kids. He'll change nappies, he'll feed, he'll help me put them to bed. And when he does these things, he actually doesn't make it feel like it's a burden. He says to me, I love doing this for my daughter. I love doing these things for my daughters because it's my bonding time with them. So when I first had Zena, and I was home obviously for maternity leave, but he always said to me, I want to give her a bath when I come home. So he'd come home from work, a full day of work. The first thing he would do is, put his bags down and grab his daughter and, cuddle her or whatever, and then take her for a bath. And that was his thing. He'd bath her, he'd sing to her, and then the whole, I'd feed her, and then he would take her for a bedtime story. So it's really, really important to have the family to support you. And I'm very lucky. I'm also very lucky that I have a very supportive boss. So my boss has 2 young children of his own, not as young as mine. I think they're 10 and 6. But he's been through that, and his wife is a working academic as well. And he's seen how his wife has managed and balanced the whole work, life, family, everything. And he has been an incredible amount of support for me, allowing me to return to work at a pace that suits me, that's worked for me, giving me many, many opportunities to be understanding. So when the children get sick, not to make me feel guilty. Why are you taking another day off? Or, you were sick last week. What's happening now? Very supportive. You understand that children get sick often. And one other thing that's really helped me prioritize or understand is that work-life balance isn't 50-50, right? You can't give 50% to work and 50% to children, and that's it. It has to be more fine-tuned. And what you have to do is you have to weigh each individual task and say, at this point, what it needs my immediate attention? Is it my sick child or is it a project? Obviously, your sick child will take priority. And a few weeks ago, I read a Twitter thread where somebody described this as juggling balls in the air, not just a few balls, but maybe 50 or 100 balls women are juggling at one point, thinking about shopping lists, laundry, food, deadlines, poster presentations, students, everything, right? But you've got to know which ball is okay to drop, which balls are plastic and which balls are made of glass. The plastic ones will drop and they'll bounce back up and you catch them again later. But the glass ones, if you drop them, they'll break. So you have to realize what's actually worth maybe kind of taking a step back from and reprioritizing. So that I've only heard in the last few weeks, and I really love that analogy because it's made me realize that you need to kind of break down the tasks and see what's important to you at that given time. So I want to give you one example is that last week, both my daughters have been sick. Zena and Irina have been sick, and this has been a very difficult week, very challenging week, probably taking me back to newborn days when you have no sleep, you've got children like clinging on to you, and 24/7. And I had quite a few work deadlines that I should have been working on, and my plan was to get them done during my work days, but I just could not get to the computer, could not do anything. But you just have to realize that when your children are sick, they need you, and they want comfort, they want to be held by you, and you just have to give them a priority, and work can be picked up the following week.
Thank you. Thanks for that analogy too. That was really good.
Thank you.
So, the next question is, did you face any hurdles, perhaps advancing a career in STEM?
So this question can be answered in many, many different ways. And one obvious hurdle for me has been my career breaks. I've taken quite significant career breaks with, pregnancy. My first pregnancy was quite sick, so I had to take quite a lot of time off for sick leave, the maternity leave. And then my second pregnancy, I had to finish work. I think it was 3 months before I had planned to because of some medical issues I was having. I was put in bed rest. So that's had a severe impact on the progress I've made at work. So I'm not sure how familiar your audience is with academic life, but academics are under extreme pressure to publish. So they have to do a lot of research to be able to publish. And when they publish, then they're able to be more competitive to gain funding. And it's a cycle. You have to do the research, publish, get funding, do the research, get published, get funding. So academics very rarely have long-term contracts or even permanent contracts. We're often on 1 year, actually even 6-month contracts, often 6 months, 1 year, 3 years. They're very short contracts. So you're constantly thinking about how to become more competitive. As soon as you remove yourself from the academic environment, you're actually losing or giving up or unable to take up those opportunities that will help you continue in that cycle of being competitive. So those career breaks have definitely impacted my career. But a very wise senior academic who's also a mother, who's now, her children that are grown up, said to me, this is not a race. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people. You will get where you want to be, but it might take you a bit longer. It doesn't matter. And that really kind of made sense to me. Is like, I shouldn't be comparing myself to anyone. If I work hard and I do my job well, I will eventually get the success that I'm looking for. So yeah, at times it can be really hard when you're coming back from a break, because you really have to catch up on all the projects and understand where the science has moved while you've been away. And as much as you try and keep up during your leave, it's very difficult because science moves at a fast pace. And obviously now coming back, I have those weekly or fortnightly hurdles of myself getting sick, my kids getting sick, and taking a lot of time off, but that's all fine. Other hurdles I faced, or maybe opportunities, you can see them in either way. So my undergraduate degree was in genetics, and then I went on to do a PhD in molecular pharmacology. So I had to relearn or learn a new field of science, essentially, during my PhD. And during my PhD, I had specialized in a very specialized class of proteins. And then I moved to Australia, did a little bit more on those proteins, and moved to Adelaide. And I have moved fields again. I'm in innate immunology now. I'm looking at pain, and I'm working in a multidisciplinary environment where I work very closely with the disciplines of physics and chemistry and engineering. So I'm learning new languages and new ways of doing things. And these can be seen as hurdles, but I often see them as opportunities to learn and keep growing. And then probably one other example that I can give you or share with you, an experience I've had, is one of the biggest hurdles I had was when I wrapped up my job in Perth to move to Adelaide. So my husband and I were planning on moving to Melbourne actually after the wedding. And while I was in Perth, wrapping up my position in Perth, I was actively looking for jobs in Melbourne. So I was contacting people, and I managed to get an interview. And after we got married, I attended that interview, and I was actually offered that position. And just as my husband and I were finalizing, about to accept the offer, I realized that we actually couldn't move because of my mother-in-law and my father-in-law are quite elderly, but my mother-in-law has now passed away, but we were quite elderly. And I felt that if we left, they would have no one here. So we decided that actually I would not take that position. I would stay in Adelaide, and that way we'd be close to them. But that left me in a part of the world where I didn't know anybody. I had no research contacts. I hadn't even made an attempt to get to know what was happening in this part of the world. And as you know, a lot of jobs come out of networking. So it's very rare in research where you have a paid position advertised and you apply for it and then you get it. Often you have to create these opportunities. So I spent a lot of time just on the internet trying to figure out who was who, what research was happening here, and contacting people. And every time I contacted someone, I managed to get through the door and talk to them and get them excited about my research and about who I am. But every single time, at the end of the conversation, it was, we'd love to hire you. We'd hire you yesterday, but we have no money. Sorry, there's the door. And that happened time after time after time. It was very difficult to be in a new place and not have, for someone like me, that focus and career. And I actually heard somebody called Professor Mark Hutchison present on a radio show, and he was talking about his research, and it really kind of clicked with me. This is really exciting stuff. He's saying he's proposing a mechanism for something potentially my experience could help him. So I contacted him via email, very receptive, asked me to come in, was very excited by what I had to say. And just when I was getting excited myself, he said the exact same words to me. He said, "I'm sorry, I would love to hire you. I really want to do this stuff, but I don't have any money." And honestly, my heart sunk, and I was about to grab my bag and think, okay, back to the drawing board. But he was the only person that said to me, "Let's try and get funding. I want to work with you. Let's try and get funding." And I spent a year writing grants, and the grant cycle is quite long, where you write a grant and you have to wait almost a year, and in many cases, to find out whether that grant was successful. So you applied for lots of grants, lots were successful. We got some small bits of money, we got some commercial funding, and eventually we got enough money that he could hire me for 7 years. And 7 years in a research academic in a great academic environment, it's very rare. So very, very lucky that I met him and we managed to work together. And he's the person I was talking about before who's been very supportive. So that hurdle actually became an opportunity for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to hand it over to Sister Firdaus to ask the next few questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so what would your recommendation tips be to girls viewing regarding studying and advancing a career into STEM?
So I think I can break these down into 3 main categories. One is to learn to recognize opportunities. Sometimes we have a plan or a journey or something in our mind that we've got fixed. We want to get from A to B. And if something doesn't look like it's getting us to B, we don't even, we're not receptive to those opportunities. So I like to give examples. So I'll give you an example of how I've learned that no one has a defined career path. So if you talk to professors or leaders in their fields and you ask them, how did you become the CEO of this company? How did you become the professor of pharmacology? And they'll tell you, well, I did a PhD here, and there was a job and I applied for it and I got it, or I never got this one and I went somewhere else. It's always like a zigzag up and down, and then they get there. So when I finished my PhD in the UK, in the months leading up to a conference where I was planning to present my data, I was thinking about what I want to do next. And I knew that I wanted to move away from the UK for something, for a new experience. And I thought, maybe I'll go to the US, or maybe I'll go to another lab in Europe. So what I did in the months before the conference was, I knew that all these big names from this field were going to be at this conference. I emailed them, I organized meetings with the idea I'll talk to them informally. And then if they have a position or we can talk about funding, maybe I can work for them. So I got to the meeting and I talked to all these people, and honestly, nothing felt right. Nothing felt right. All this excitement that had been, was generating before the meeting, nothing felt right. And I was a bit down. So a part of the conference was that I had to stand in front of this board and had this massive poster where I was presenting my data. So it was my turn to present. And I was standing at my poster presenting, and people were coming and going. And then this one young gentleman, I would say, because he was definitely under 40, came up and started talking to me, and he chatted. He was very interested about my research and what I was doing, and he grilled me. He grilled me for maybe 15, 20 minutes, question after question, technique, what do you do this for? Why did you do this? What was the reason? Blah, 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 blah. And it was just constant. And I was like, where did this come from? And at the end of that poster presentation, he offered me a job. So I was completely taken aback by this. And then I was completely taken aback because this job was in Perth in Australia. And Australia was never on my radar. Never had I thought about it. I don't know why. I thought about all these other countries, but never thought about Australia. And at first I thought, don't know about that. Is that something I want to do? But I'm so glad that I met him. That opportunity came out of nowhere. And I'm so glad I took him on his offer, because that has landed me an amazing lifestyle in Australia. I've met my husband here. I have 2 lovely children. It's led me to where I am now at the University of Adelaide with a very supportive boss and an amazing team. So be open to opportunities. If something doesn't work out, realize that it wasn't meant to be, and then explore something new. The other thing I'd like to say is that the other piece of advice is be creative when you're creating your opportunities. So if there are no opportunities that you can see, you have to be the one that creates them. So I'd say it's really important to stand out from the crowd, especially in a competitive field like STEM. And whether it's, you're tapping into your current network of teachers, your lecturers, your colleagues, your friend who's done a degree, just get yourself out there, let people know who you are, let them know what you're interested in, so that something comes up in the future, think, oh, Yasmin wanted to do this. I wonder if she's interested. I'll contact her. So to give you an idea, like when I was doing my undergraduate, in my second year, when most students will go off on summer placements and holidays and stuff, I decided to contact my lecturers and say, I'd love to do work placement. Is there any opportunities? And I was very lucky to be offered, I think it was now 6 or 8 week placement. And this was actually at the expense of a paid job. And all my friends were making fun of me, saying, we're going to a paid job and you're going to work off for free. But honestly, that unpaid work experience was a key stepping stone for my career to where I am today. And I'm really, really glad that I did that. And actually, it's my mum's support, my mother, who said to me, money will come and go, but the experience that you have under your belt, you will always have that, and it sets you apart. So be creative, create opportunities, get as much experience as you can. And I gave you the example of how I met my current boss. I heard him on the radio, I contacted him, I took the big step of doing that. And actually, that was also an encouragement of my husband, because when I heard him on the radio, I was, should I not? And he's like, no, email him. So very, very thankful that I have a very supportive husband. So the final advice would be, surround yourself with the people that are key for your success. So these are people that are your supporters, your cheerleaders, people that motivate you, inspire you, who encourage you to do things that maybe you don't think you can achieve yourself. Now, I've been very, very lucky. I have my family, my mother especially. I'm so indebted, grateful for everything that she's done for me. But my husband, my friends, my boss, and Mark has been incredible boss. So I came back from maternity leave after having Zena, and as most women tend to have a bit of a confidence issue after coming back after a break, I was just trying to get back into work and try to understand what things had to be done, where things were left where they were left, and how to move them forward. And he basically tapped me on the shoulder via email and said to me, there's a program where, Science Technology Australia are looking for women that they would like to join the Superstars of STEM program. And I hadn't even heard of the program. He said, I really want you to apply. You should apply for it. And I kind of looked at the questions, thought, okay, if he wants me to, I probably won't get it. There's no way I'll get it. And I just looked at the questions, like 4 or 5 questions, and they didn't look very hard. So I thought, I'll do it the weekend. Weekend came, I realized those questions were pretty hard. Because they had very, very strict character limits, and you had to get your message across. So I thought, did my best, submitted it, had no expectations of getting through, got an email saying I was through to the second round, completely surprised, blown away. Then I had to make a 60-second video of myself and my research. Did that, and I was very fortunate to be named a Superstar STEM in Australia. And that only happened because Mark actually... He didn't just mentor me, but he acted as my sponsor. He said to me, there's an opportunity here. You should go for it. He encouraged me, and I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that myself. So find people that encourage you. Find people that see the qualities and the talent that you have, and they help to nurture that. People that don't feel threatened by you. That's really what you're looking for. Someone that actually realizes that your success is also their success. And also really do what you enjoy. So STEM is really, massive. Find a subject, find a topic that you enjoy. Talk to the people that do that research and see if you can go into the labs and have a look and maybe do a short placement. When researchers love it when people ask them about their research and ask questions. So definitely do that.
I think it's basically with all your perseverance, all your own self-worth, and believing in yourself is the main message here. And much like what you've said, you've had a lovely support from your family, from your work colleagues too, so it's lovely, and you can tell from the way you speak about things so passionately. It's lovely to see.
Thank you.
My question for you is, what would your advice be to mothers that have stopped education as they have become mothers?
So this is really a tricky question because, why did someone stop? Is it because it's not their passion, or they wanted to give a focus to their child and their family? So really reflect on why you stopped and how you feel at that point. Do you want to restart? I would say that education is one of the most valuable tools that you can ever gain. And the more you learn, the better that you are. Your life will thank you for it. I'm thinking back to what my mother taught me. My mum came from a small village in Pakistan where she did the standard primary school education, but she wasn't able to do anything more, even though she wanted to, because at that time it just wasn't the norm, and they didn't have the high school in the village that she stayed in. She was married very young, and so she wanted a very different life for me. She said to me, I want you to be independent, I want you to have an education, I want you to be confident, and I want you to, basically have a very different life. And it's been amazing. Like, the opportunities that open up to you if you have an education, people come to you for advice, you can help people, you can give back in any way that you can see. So if you can go back into education, definitely do it. But find something that you're passionate about. Don't just do it because your parents said, or someone's telling you to become a doctor or study medicine. It has to come from in here, from your heart. And if you enjoy something, that's when you will excel, because you'll want to do that particular topic, that subject. You want to progress in your career. It's common sense. If you don't like what you're doing, then don't do it. Find something else. But yes, find something that you enjoy and try and find the support of your partner, your family that can help with the kids. And I think as mothers, we are the child's first role model. It's so important for us to role model all these so many things. Like, I'll give you an example. Like my daughter, who was only maybe 2 at the time, told me that, Mama, I want to be an astronaut so I can sleep on the moon. It was just so beautiful the way she said that to me. And last week she's saying to me, Mama, when I go to university, she's 4. I didn't know what university was when I was that age. So she sees me, talk about university, talk about my research. I share everything with her. And obviously at her level, and she pretends that she's in a meeting in a Zoom. I was in a meeting and she was sitting next to me drawing something on a piece of paper, and then she said, Mama, shh, I'm going to go to a meeting. Went to my room, sat in the bed, and basically this piece of paper had like faces on that she drew, and she was pretending she had earphones on and she was in a Zoom meeting. It was so cute. But to think that a 4-year-old is doing that type of thing, they're modeling what they see. And it's not just career. Like, she's in the kitchen with me when I'm in the kitchen cooking. We go for walks, we're in the garden, we do all of it. So she sees everything, and she picks up on it. So if you can role model that, please do it for your children, because they're our future. They're a generation that's going to lead us to better times.
Definitely. I think what you nurture as a mother with your children would always show when they grow older. And it's very vital that we teach them about the values in our lives, and we show them our experiences and our struggles, but we also give them the hope that, yes, you can do and be whatever you want to be. And it's beautiful to see that she's sitting there telling you that she's in a meeting. And I think that reflects on you and the way you've brought her up too, and your husband as well. So mashallah, that is beautiful. Yeah. My last and final question to you is, how do you feel you have balanced being a mother and advancing in your field at the same time?
I keep coming back to this. I've just been very fortunate to have such a supportive husband, such a supportive boss at work, such amazing colleagues, and very unusual to be in a workplace that is very family friendly. They actually go out their way to help women and even men that have career breaks and have children. So, for example, every year I work for the Centre for Nanoscale Biophotonics. They have an annual conference, and the centre is based in Adelaide, like the headquarters, but we also have nodes in Melbourne, in Sydney and Griffiths, like all over Australia. So what they're trying to do is have an annual conference in different locations. And when I had Zena, she was probably about 10 months old, 11 months old when we had a conference. And I knew that I could not go to that conference and leave her behind because she was too young. So they actually organized such that I could bring her to the conference. They hired a nanny, who was in the room right next to where the conference was. And this is like a fully qualified nanny who was looking after children. and which was great for the first day because my husband was working. But then my husband then decided to take a couple of days off work and join us, and they paid for him to come and join us and stay with us in this hotel so that he could look after my daughter while I could work, but in the same building. It was amazing. So I could, go in there and feed her. I could change her nappies. I can give her a kiss, cuddle, and go back. And she was even welcome into the main conference room. Like, nobody batted an eyelid if she made a little bit of a noise or a laughed, or they were just amazingly supportive. Other conferences, people are dying to hold the baby and cuddle the baby, to put them to sleep so I can have a break. The conference that I took Arena to last October, she was 3 months old. I had to chair a session. I was very fortunate to chair a session. So my colleague and very good friend, Vicky, actually took Arena and had her in the front row so I could see her and she could see me and I could do the job. So, I'm very lucky to be in an environment where people are supportive. I'm well aware that there are other environments that are not as supportive. And all I can say is that we just have to try and champion to change things so that everybody has an equal environment they can work in, where they can feel like they can bring their children if they have to, they can take time off to care for their child if they have to, where the support for carers to come to conferences or meetings to look after the child. I feel like it's challenging. There's some times where, everything's great, kids are doing well, work's doing well. Other times there's pressures at work, so, you have to balance at home. Other times kids are not well. Other times everything's up in the air and you have really difficult weeks. But the really important thing to know is that everything is temporary. So if you're going through a difficult situation, remember that it will pass. And when it passes, things will get better and then you can reset. So just remembering that and taking time for resetting and self-caring and knowing that every day is a new day. I've had a very challenging week this week, and I actually was reflecting because there was no balance for work or child. I was thinking, I'm giving this interview on Saturday about work-life balance. I'm not sure if I'm the right person because it's a challenging week, but this is life, right? We're all human. There's no secret to success. I think often we feel that there are people that have everything 100% set. They're successful in their home life, successful at work, everything's perfect, but that's a persona. And personally, I feel that it's not a good idea to portray that everything is perfect, because I think you set unrealistic expectations for people that are finding it challenging. So if somebody's finding it challenging and they see someone else that looks like they're just gliding through life, they'll feel like they're a failure. And it's not fair to make someone feel like that when you yourself are maybe also finding it difficult. So I always love to share my challenges and maybe the difficult situations I've been in, because I think that might help someone to feel like they can open up and share their burden as well. So I believe in being a little bit vulnerable and sharing these experiences with my colleagues, my students, and the people around me, so that we are a bit more receptive and open to talking about what's difficult in life and not just what's Instagram perfect, because that's not really true. So, yeah.
I think that's it. We tend to forget in this lifestyle that we live in, especially with social media, that there's this perfect persona that's out there, and not everybody can live up to that, and not everybody can be that. Always this, like I said, like there's this persona that everything's going well, and like you said, it's good to show both sides and to show that we are humans, we do struggle, and there's times where we do have to take a breather and step back and think, okay, let's get ourselves back to track, and then we're more energized and focused for things. But thank you so much for today. It's been very inspirational for myself, and I'm sure it has been for Sister Hafsa. Really enjoyed your talk. Your answers to our questions, and I can't thank you enough. I do apologize at the beginning, and hopefully this is a learning curve for all of us.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. Absolutely honored to be able to share some of my lived experiences, as I said before. It's a live event. It's all new to us to do over internet like this. So you've done an amazing job. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanam.